Okay. The panel we're going to be having is titled The Multi-Dimensions of Gender. It's a panel discussion highlighting the voices of transgender movement, action, resilience in Los Angeles, featuring Eden Luda, Ezra Michel, Mars Wright, and Celestial Moreno-Luz, with transgender health advocate Luckie Alexander as the moderator. The panel will highlight the power of community and self-affirmation, the importance of transgender accomplice-ship, and the intersections of art and multidimensional genders. Can we all please welcome our panelists up to the stage?
I think that I could not do justice for a lot of these beautiful humans, so I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. So if we start with Mars.
Hey everybody, my name is Mars Wright. I am the founder and CEO of a streetwear brand called Life on Mars. It's a clothing line that centers trans joy, gender euphoria, and the importance of radical vulnerability. And I'm really grateful to be here. Thank you so much, Penny Lane, and thank you, Luckie, for the amazing intro.
No problem. Ezra?
Hi, I'm Ezra Michel. My pronouns are he and she. I am a musician and a content creator and a hairdresser and an actor. I do a lot of stuff. I have ADHD and I'm very talented. And I'm really, really pleased to be here right now. It feels I feel very honored to be sitting here. So thank you so much. Thank you, Luckie, for moderating. And thank you, Penny Lane.
Thank you. Luna?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eden Anay Luna. I use they, she pronouns in English and ella and ella in Spanish. I am a Latina, trans, feminine, non-binary person, but beyond identities, I invite you to look at my bio to learn more about my experiences. I think oftentimes identities are only an avatar for what exists beyond a person's lifetime and their story. So I invite you to look at all of our bios on the website. And I'm so honored and pleased to be here on the stage with lovely colleagues and friends. I know these people for many, many years, and so it's like having a impersonal, on-the-couch conversation at our house, and you all are just watching and invited as well.
Thank you. Celestial.
Hello everyone. How y'all doing? Can I get some energy? Hey! Okay. My name is Celestial Moreno-Luz. My pronouns are she, her, ella. I am from Los Angeles, aka Tongva Nation, and I am a multidisciplinary artist, community organizer, LGBTQ plus advocate, lover, friend, and so excited to be here on this panel with folks, friends and new friends. I don't know everyone here from a long time like Luna does, but I will say that it feels that I have in that capacity. So thank you all for being here, and I'm super excited to share with the rest of the panel our experiences and our dreams and hopes.
Right. Thank you all. So this is going to be really cool. So some of the things we're going to go through are going to be around providing you all with some takeaways to better serve the trans youth and the LGBTQIA youth as a whole that you work with. We're also going to talk about things to better understand the trans community at the intersection with the cis community, as well as how your orgs can support trans youth and how folks can validate everyone's genders. So the first question, and I throw this out to all of you, what has been the most impactful gift given to you that has affirmed your gender? Anyone can start? Go for it.
For me, I think the most impactful gift, and it's really a double-edged sword, but like I think it's something that allowed me to take the step, was permission. When someone allowed me permission to exist and be my authentic self in the space I was occupying, that's when I felt like at ease, my shoulders were able to roll back, and I was able to say, okay, we're here. I think so many times in my head, I would second guess and think, am I trans enough? Am I non-binary enough? Am I queer enough? Am I this enough? Am I Latina enough? Am I enough, period? And every time someone said, you are enough, or you belong, or you deserve to be here, or I'm here for you, or please come, I want you to come. Not you're allowed to come, but I want you to be here. I want you to show up as your authentic self. That allows me to feel, that's a gift every day, like to be able to walk into this space, to be alive another day as a trans person, to take up space, to be visible, to be in front of you talking. This is a blessing that many people don't have, and I think it's such a thing to acknowledge. And so I'd say the biggest gift was the permission, the acceptance, the invitation. I also think as a child, I think my first gift of gender was when my cousin tied my hair. I always had long hair, but my cousin tied my hair into little trencitas, like that's braids, or into little like pom-poms. And that's when I realized, like, okay, I'm not like other kids. And I think it's been those moments, those little moments throughout life that allowed me to be the person I am today.
Shivers. Yes. Anyone else want to answer this one?
I think for me, having the space to change throughout my transition has been the biggest gift for me. Because when I first came out, I was 18. It was 2013, and language wasn't really accessible at that time to express the multi-dimensions of my gender. It was very black and white at that time. It was very like, if you're trans, you are a binary trans person. There is no in-between. There was no representation that I had access to at that time. And so as I've evolved in my transition, in my gender, I've had a lot of support from folks around me who have just accepted me every step of the way and not tried to pin me down when I was trying to move. And my family, I'm very privileged to have a family that is very queer and very accepting and loving, and they never wanted to put me in a box. And even when I was trying to put myself in a box, they reminded me that there was no box for me. And I think that, you know, often we're trying to help our loved ones find out who they are by giving them all these options instead of just allowing them to just be fluid and free. And I think that is where I've landed with my gender, thanks to all the people encouraging me to be the fluid person that I really am. So.
Thank you. That is beautiful. Thank you. Go ahead, Mars.
I love both y'all's answers. This question, too, I found really interesting because it brought me back to my childhood. And I think the biggest gift that I got was actually the sweatpants section of Kmart, because it was the only section in Kmart where I didn't have to decide, am I going to go to the boys section where I really want to go and buy clothes, or am I going to go to the girls section and hate my body and feel like I'm like literally burning from the inside when I'm here. And so I was given space and I was given permission at that sweatpants section of Kmart, where it was, you don't have to make this choice now. And you also are allowed to be in the sweatpants section. Like, everybody loves the sweatpants section. They're comfy. There's tons of colors. Like, it's great, you know? And so I think that was one of the biggest gifts. And that's kind of why I've been so interested in fashion and clothes and the way and the power that I can take back for myself when I'm choosing how I dress and the ways that I wear. But yeah, I love that Kmart sweatpants section. And I'll go there often. It's still very comfy clothes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mars. I think I'm going to really just, as a segment from my lovely panelists, go in a little deeper in regards to like trauma. And so for me, I think the best gift or the most impactful gift that I received was really sobriety and recovery. I grew up a lot with abusing ecstasy, with abusing alcohol, with abusing meth, so it just continued to get harder and harder. And I was using at a young age. I was 14, but it was very strange because although I had shelter, I didn't have to run away. I still was abusing and abusing. And so I think that when the reason why I started recovery was because I got a DUI and I was like, well, I might as well be sober because I had to take these classes, you know, just very typical for brown and black people's experience when it comes to alcohol. And so when I started to pursue recovery was when I became sober and I realized that I was trans. And so it really was the intersection of recovery, sobriety, and the communities that I was building with that brought me to who I am today. And so when I started my journey in sobriety, I started to become more involved in immigrant justice coalitions, with Black Trans Lives Matters, affinity groups, and just on-campus student organizing that really brought me to who I am today. And so the second part really to that question is, when I was growing up, I think the most gender-affirming gift given to me was my mom recorded a lot of Sailor Moon episodes on VHS. And so like I didn't really remember watching them when I was really young, but since she recorded them, then I would just like pop in a cassette over and over and over again. And you know, like the Sailor Scouts are very interesting, right? Sailor Jupiter is like masked and determined, and Sailor Venus is like super girly and flirtatious. Sailor Mercury is nerdy. Sailor Mars is like mysterious and to the point. And Sailor Moon was a crybaby, and I'm all of the Sailor Scouts in one body. And so I think that like really it was a two-part answer for me because my gender and my identity is just so multidimensional that I can go a different route every time I talk about what kind of gifts were given to me.
Thank you all for that. Beautiful responses, super beautiful responses. I think as a trans person and as an older trans person, determination was what I got. I was born premature, 2 months, 2 months premature and 2 pounds, 3 ounces. And the doc told me I wasn't gonna make it past my first birthday and that I was gonna be very small my entire life. Today I stand and I am 42 years old. Okay, I'm a grandpa, you know, so for sure I can resonate with a lot of the responses. The next question is going to be, how can allies support trans youth?
Yeah, I was brought back to the Kmart sweatpants period in my life. And I was remembering how my parents were handling that, because I'm also very lucky and privileged to have parents that are very accepting. And they went to my doctor at the time and they were like, hey, like our child is experiencing gender in this way that we don't understand. Do you have any resources? And the doctor just was like, get her hormones checked. And so they got my levels checked, and they found out I had more estrogen, so that was really thrilling for me. And then they moved on. They were like, it'll go away. Like tomboys do this. This is a phase. And what I really needed in that moment would have been a provider to lay down with my parents and say, these are the options. This is a common experience for trans youth. This is a common experience for maybe somebody that isn't trans, but this is some resources. Can you see how your kid is enacting? How are they talking to their friends? How are they acting when they go to the clothing sections of stores? Are you seeing any of these things? And giving my parents those resources. And now as an adult trans person, I'm even still like, I'm getting a lot of my medical care, my resources. We were just talking about this from other trans men. I'm finding out about surgery. I just recently got body masculinization surgery, which I found out about through other trans men. I have a friend with me here who underwent facial masculinization surgery, which I had not heard about from a provider. He had to tell me about it. I have friends that are starting pellets for testosterone. There's a lot of really exciting, innovative, fun healthcare that's coming out and research being done for trans folks. And I just need providers to be constantly doing that research and education, because even for myself, I'm getting lost. I'm having to figure out, well, what's new, what's going on? And I need those resources still to this day, because I still need healthcare. We still are here, and we still need healthcare. So I just wish, constant research. This is your job. This is your responsibility to our community, to be making sure that you're informed and sharing that information with the people that need it. Because had I been able to start hormone blockers at that age, my life would have looked dramatically different. And I probably would have not gone through a lot of the hardships I did in my youth. And I'm very sad that that didn't happen at that time, and I never want another trans youth to have to go through that.
Thank you, for sure.
I think just to segue to what Mars was saying, he brought up a lot about outdated and updated information, right? And so even today, when I was at a workshop around locked up LGBTQ plus youth, a lot of the statistics were for like 2010, 2012. Y'all need to do better too, you know? There is research happening today from 2018, 2019, 2020. Like, it's there, right? Why are we still using outdated modes of health and security to supplement the lives of LGBTQ plus people? Like, that's not working. It hasn't worked before and it's not gonna work today. So I think honestly, doing your research, updated research, and working to supplement our lives is a way to be an ally to trans youth.
Thank you for uplifting that. Aiden?
My colleagues and friends brought up so many great points. I think to jump off what Celestial just mentioned too, I think with the research aspect, I think not just research, but funding. Funding makes research happen, funding makes staffing happen, funding makes lives change, and it all comes back down to money. So if you have some kind of way to invest or encourage donors to invest into trans lives, whether through an organization or directly or in person or providing someone housing or relief or a hotel for a weekend, all that can make a difference. Now to bring it back to the question, I think in relation to my inner child and my youth, I think when I was young, I had an understanding of who I was, but I think I was afraid to let the world know. I didn't come out until I was 16 to my friends, and even then only select few of my friends. There were queer people at school, and I even helped create the GSA at school, but I never came out. I didn't want people to know that, and I didn't want my family to know that. And when I came out at 18, my mom, who was my best friend, I told her everything. Up until that point, I told her. And then she told me that she told my dad. And she outed me to my dad. My dad was an alcoholic, an abuser. He physically beat my mom and my family. And to have that sudden fear come back. When I came back home from college one weekend, I saw my dad at the driveway, and they were interrogating me about, so who made you this? Were you molested? What was the reason for all that? And I think that's not a way to take care of a kid. I think if I were an adult or a teacher now, or if I can share that message with an adult or a teacher now, I tell the teachers and adults that not just provide a safe space, but if your kid or your student or the person you're mentoring tells you that they want to come out, really think about like a safety plan. Really think about whether that person will be safe, will the people accept them, do they have a course of action in case they aren't accepted? Because soon after that, I ran out from home. I was in college at Cal State Long Beach, at one point couch surfing, living in my car. Like, this is how people become homeless. This is how people get associated with survival-based economies, underground work, with substance use, with so many other pathways off the traditional way into education and empowerment. And I think for youth, it's so important that we think about how can we make sure that you're safe and protected, because sometimes we don't have anyone rooting for us. We don't have anyone there in our corner. So really protect us, really, really, like beyond just research, beyond funding, beyond investing, beyond all of that, really just offer your protection.
Thank you.
Wow. That was a very beautiful response. That also takes me back to my youth and when I was first starting to question everything. I was in therapy. I was a very troubled child. I was, I ditched school a lot. I was getting high a lot, and my family didn't really. While they loved me and they accepted me as a creative child, I really had to fight for my mental health care. I grew up with a mom who didn't believe in psychiatry, And I grew up with a dad who didn't really care about doctors. And so when I was experiencing wanting to hurt myself, I was very much on my own with needing to figure out how to deal with it and value my life, even though everything in my brain and my body was telling me that I shouldn't be alive. And so I think for me, you know, when I first started accessing therapy, as I think I was probably 16 when I started cutting myself and I realized I needed to go to therapy, I brought myself to therapy and told my therapist that I was trans, and she didn't believe me. And she told me that I wasn't, and she said I was too young, and that I almost took my life because of her, because of what she said to me, because she didn't know the power she held. I was a kid, and I needed help, and I needed direction. Words are so powerful. And from one sentence of, I don't think so, I don't think you're trans, she could have impacted my life and my family's lives and my friends' lives forever. And thank God I had the will and the desire to keep going because of the support that I had from my family. But we need to affirm our trans youth, even if it's a phase. It doesn't matter if they're questioning, if, you know, thank God they're questioning. Let them. Encourage them to question everything. Why would we want to protect them from exploring themselves? It is not dangerous to be ourselves. It is dangerous in the world, but inside of ourselves, it's safer to express ourselves as our true selves. Because, I mean, yeah, the world is dangerous for trans folks, but my body is dangerous for me if I am not being myself. So I can handle the world, and I really believe that, you know, as long as we encourage our children to explore themselves and give them that affirmation, give them that safe space to do so, that's the best thing we can do for them.
Go ahead.
I really want to speak to that point of the questioning and the phase part. I think so many people say it's a phase, or you're questioning, or you're not trans enough, or you're not trans, or whatever. And I even think about even like a lot of current narratives around detransitioning, and what does that mean? Do trans people deserve healthcare or not? And ultimately, I think just like anything else in life, we try things, we try food, we try cultures, we try dance, and we realize, hey, this is for me, or this is not for me. I think we have the freedom and the space to explore and make mistakes. And sure enough, there may be, which I believe is like 0.1% of trans youth who detransition, there may be some people who detransition, sure. But a lot of these treatments are reversible, or there are some aspects that can be stopped, like hormone and puberty blockers. Like, these aren't forever, and there are resources and people who are trained to be able to talk to someone and guide them through that process if they wish to. But there are also 99.9% people, trans people, who are living healthy, happy lives. And to have someone have the power to deny them and say that you do not belong, you don't deserve this, you shouldn't qualify for these resources, we shouldn't fund these resources, is denying all those people a happier life. So don't let that 0.1% discourage you. And even those people, they're just figuring out life for themselves too. And chances are, they're dealing with a hard world. I can only imagine what it would be like. I'm so blessed, so lucky to be born and raised in LA, where I feel that I didn't even know it, but I was coming out in a world that was already paved for me. People did the work so that I can run in my heels today. And if I were in the Midwest, if I were in an area that's under-resourced, under attack right now with legislation, with violence, with so many different attacks, I think it'd be a different story. for my 18-year-old self. It's not to say that, it's impossible. No, in fact, I think those places need even more help. We're in a place of privilege where we have access to healthcare, access to providers, access to people who have done the research, people who are competent, people who have done this for decades. In other states, they don't have the funding, they don't have the time, they don't have the staffing. Let's also bring back support their way too. Whether it's advocating for policy or advocating for funding. Also for migrant folks who are coming from other countries. In my past job, I was working with so many people who are coming from Central America, from South America, from Mexico, coming here because they were told that LA would be an LGBTQ-friendly space, a space friendly for migrants and survivors of trafficking and violence and so many different attacks. And when they get here, they get told, you're not trans enough. You're not American enough. You don't qualify. And we need to support them too. And so I just want to bring that back.
Thank you so much for that. I really want to do a quick, follow up with Eden, Luna's, talk about how migrant communities in Los Angeles are really trying to get the care and services they need. And also, if you think about the global South in general, the global South is experiencing some of the most discriminatory lives that they can possibly live because being LGBTQ+. And so when you brought up the thing about migrants being in LA and not being told they're trans enough, not being told they're American enough, there's also a huge language barrier occurring within the city that migrants, despite all these resources existing, most of the people in that staff don't even speak a different language other than English. So it's we cannot just think about trans youth allyship as this let's give them money or let's advocate for trans people so that they get health services, but how are we looking at health holistically, from language justice to economic justice to all these different forms of healing that can occur within trans communities, not just in Los Angeles, but transnationally?
Yes. Thank you, all of you. So we've got one more question. How has art impacted what your gender journey has looked like for you? Go ahead, Eden.
Yeah, so art, oh my God, in so many ways. When I was 6 years old, my first dream job, I wanted to be a fashion designer. I wanted to work with fashion some way, walk the runway, turn looks, be pretty. I wanted to be beautiful. That's more than all of my life. That's all I wanted, to be beautiful. Luckily, I am now, but no. But seriously, oh my God, I'm crying. Seriously, and then in college, all I ever wanted to do was drag. I thought drag was oh my gosh, this space where I can express gender and be celebrated and have a space for me to explore. And I tried it and I realized, oh, this is only for a stage for 5 minutes for a moment, but I want to do this every day, and I want to have that freedom to express myself every day. And then I found so many other performance spaces, and through performing, through finding other artists like me, I was able to see that it doesn't just have to be on stage. You can make the world your stage. You can make your fantasies come true. And sometimes I look at myself and I think, I'm what I've always wanted to be. I'm that fantasy as a kid that I've always wanted to be, and I've always wanted to see exist in this world. And I would only see it in runways, in movies, in anime or video games or things in fantasy. But to be able to exist here and just be I'm everything I've ever wanted to be. And I think art has such a beautiful way of conveying that, because it challenges us to think what is possible, what is real, what is fantasy, and it challenges us to think, what can we create in life? And I think so many of us are so creative in our passions and our hobbies, and I wish the world would allow us to be able to cultivate that creativity without having to worry about money, without having to worry about like a stage or audience or performance. Do it for you. Ultimately, do it for the inner child. Do it for that self that always wanted to create. If you wanted to dance, dance. If you wanted to sing, sing. If you wanted to draw, draw. Like, I find now that as I'm growing older, I'm tapping into that younger self and saying like, okay, I've always wanted to be a dancer. Let's do that. I've always wanted to be a singer. Let's do that. I've always wanted to do this or that. Let's do that. I've always wanted to sew. Let's do it. And I think art is that access, that avenue. I think that's why so many trans kids, so many queer youth, like, come to art, because that's where they find that they can make their fantasies into reality.
Thank you. Anyone else like to respond?
Yeah, I think back to being a little kid and every Halloween wanting to dress up as a boy and being like, I don't care what boy, I just wanted to be a boy. So I had an Elvis costume that I wore like 3 years in a row. I was just Elvis every year. And I didn't even really like Elvis that much, but I was just sort of like, yeah, he's what I want. He's what I want to be. I wanted to be feminine and masculine and like all at once, and he really embodied that. And I was like, I don't know one song, but like, he's got a white suit, and that's awesome. And then, you know, so it's funny because I think for me, the art aspect is just, it's freedom to play. You know, my exploration is play often. It's letting my inner child guide me to, you know, really challenge the confines and the limitations that our society places on us and expand beyond those constructs. Because a kid will look at these constructs and be like, why? And adults are just like, because I said so. And I think that that's lame, you know? And I wondered, when I was younger, I wondered if I would ever turn into an adult who said, because I said so. And I'm 27, and I'm still asking why, on purpose. And I decided that I was going to be that kind of adult. And now, you know, I'm trans masculine. Okay. Like, and I'm starting to explore with makeup again. Like for the first time, really, ever. I'm starting to claim the space of femininity now that I'm comfortable in my skin, because, you know, honestly, my dysphoria, my gender dysphoria, is a very physical experience for me. It's very much like, oh, my body just felt like I was burning on the inside. Like, I don't know, like, it was so confusing. I was a kid, I don't know. I wanted to unzip my skin. That's how it felt. And my transness is so beyond that experience. You know, I don't want my trans identity to just only be defined by dysphoria. And so art has really allowed me to express and learn that I'm so much more than just pain. And now I put on makeup and I see myself and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is safe now. I can do this now because I'm on my own team now. I'm not fighting against myself anymore. So I can play, and if it feels bad, I just take it off, and it's fine, you know? It doesn't feel like I'm gonna die anymore, which is such a fucking miracle, to be honest. And really, art has given me that freedom to play and explore, and now I dress up sometimes as like a very beautiful woman, and I go out dancing, and like, it is like, I wish my family could see, because one time I tried to wear a dress and I just couldn't, I threw a tantrum, I couldn't leave the house. And now I'm like, I was like a hot bitch, and it is fierce. I look like a hot man, and then a hot lady, and then a hot who cares. And that's thanks to the art form of makeup and fashion. So, you know, yeah, that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, I love both y'all's answers, and I love the talk of play. When I was young, I would always draw instead of doing like the coloring books, and I would always get in trouble. They wouldn't let me go to recess because they were like, you can't draw outside the lines. And I think from that moment, I was like, this white piece of paper, this clean, fresh slate, is my one opportunity to create something that nobody else can see, because I can see it all within myself. I see that I'm a little boy. I see that I'm experiencing, as a little kid, like, oh, I'm going on these fun journeys. Like, I can really experience life in the way that I want to when I have this clean, fresh slate. And then I started to explore a lot more with fashion. I went to elementary school in Los Angeles, and it was very, very cool. I was pretty much passing as a boy. I would wear little suits with tie. My mom, every year for my birthday, would give me a suit with a tie, and I would just be so happy. And so that's when I first realized, like, clothing can really give me this opportunity to be myself, and I loved fashion. And then I moved schools to a small town. I moved to Joshua Tree, California, and before it was all trendy and cool, it was very, very Republican and scary and not a fun place to be a queer youth. And so I got beat up every single day for a month, and then I put the clothes away. And I remember that moment really vividly. I was in this 3rd grade, and I remember I had to have this internal dialogue with myself. I was like, okay, am I gonna stop getting beaten up every single day? Or am I gonna wear something that makes me feel happy? And I was like, no, I don't wanna get beaten up anymore. Like, this is horrible. I'm coming home bloody. So I guess I'm gonna put my happiness aside. And I put all those clothes away. I threw them in the trash. I got this nasty Curious George crop top from Walmart that I hated. It was not in the sweatpants section, so it's upsetting to me. And so being able to be a fashion designer and have a clothing line and take those clothes out of the closet, and then also center my experience, center what being trans looks like, and center finding ways to fight my dysphoria through the ways that my clothes look, just like I did as a little kid. I knew what I needed, I knew what resources I needed, and I knew the help that I needed. But it got taken away from me. And so to be able to come back and reclaim that and be an artist that makes clothes, and I go to Pride's events every year, and every year there's more and more people that I see at Pride events wearing my clothes. They're like, I chose to wear the thing that you made to this event to feel the most myself. And that makes me want to cry every single time. Because I want everybody to experience that kind of joy in wearing the suit with the ties without anybody telling them they can't wear that. They're going to get unsafe. They're going to be unsafe because we're wearing the clothes that they want. So I think fashion and art have really healed me in my gender, and I want everybody to have the opportunity to explore. And yeah, take the dress off, put the dress on. Like, it's not going to hurt anybody. It's only going to make that youth happy. So back to kind of the conversation earlier of just like, kids need that freedom and that space and that time to make these choices without fear of being shunned, shamed, or kicked out. It's very, very important.
I just want to take a moment to thank you 3 for being so vulnerable with us today. I'm really honored and grateful to be sharing space with y'all and just living in our truth and being brave in it. So thank you all for that. And yeah, give them a round of applause, y'all. Has everyone, temperature check, have y'all had your water? Is everyone good? We're coming close to the end of this panel, so drink your water. We're gonna go to the next workshop soon. And so, this is we all got to design this panel and really think about what it speaks to us most. Art has had an incredible impact in who I am as a person. I'm gonna try to go fast, but also be authentic, right? And so when I was younger, I was told, and during 6th grade, I was in an art class. I was super excited because my elementary school didn't have anything like that. And then the teacher was like, this is horrible. This is horrible, like you are not doing a good job. And I just kind of sat there like, but Miss Sanders, like, I'm trying, like, no, like just put the colors away and like work with pencil. And so I just was really thrown aback because I was like one of the brownest kids in my class. Also grew up speaking Spanish. Spanish was my first language, so my accent was present. Very clockable, in different kinds of ways. And so I think that it's unfortunate that like when anyone who wants to explore art, it's told that it's a waste of time, it's told that it's not important, and actually art really did save my life. And so in the 7th grade, I became a part of a photography club, and the photography club had like this white, tender, queer photography instructor who showed images of like queer people kissing, like using like rules of third, like all these photography concepts that we learned about. And then like 2 months later, they weren't teaching at the after school club anymore. And so from a very young age, I was like, whoa, like being queer, doing art, teaching it in schools is taboo, but I didn't really care. And so I just kept finding ways to be involved in photography spaces. And so I studied photography. And because of photography, I was even able to live in different parts of Latin America and working with trans communities in Colombia and Mexico, resisting LGBTQ plus oppression through the mediums of photography and research. And so I think that photography has brought me closer to myself, to my communities, and has really given me the space to be authentic. And so if I know that, and I get this question a lot because I do presentations on art, art as anti-stigma, art as anti-racist work, right, and art and HIV prevention. Like, how are we going to use art to like mitigate and integrate that into public health? Like, it's very simple, right? You pitch a project to your leadership team that's like, we're going to do a leadership art project where youth are doing storytelling videos around their neighborhoods and how specific intersections of migration, trans health, anti-racism affect and impact their lives. And there you have like, there's your grant proposal, hire me as a consultant, and you know, hire trans people. And so, yeah, I just kind of wanted to it's a very quick notes version, but art saved my life. Art is the reason why I'm here with you, and thank y'all so much.
As Celestial mentioned, I know we're nearing the end of the panel, but please invite us back to speak at your schools, at your areas. You want us to talk to the youth, the teachers, the parents. Like, all of us have experience in some way, shape, or form to be able to speak on these topics. And I'll plug in myself as well. I'm a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant, and I work with many different companies, schools, agencies, city governments. So if you need someone to help walk you through policies or recommendations in the workplace, I'm happy to do that for you as well. I know Ezra and Mars as well have many talents, and I'm sure you can find out more when they speak. And on their bios as well, I invite you back again to look at our bios. Consider inviting us to speak at your next event as well.
Thank you for redirecting people to our bios because they are very impressive. We are 5 incredibly impressive trans folks sitting before you and standing. And I also want to invite you to check out my music because it is very trans-focused, and I started releasing it during the pandemic, and that on the topic of art, I can't believe I blew right past it because I really got a lot of healing from writing music surrounding my gender and you know, healing from toxic transphobia and toxic masculinity that kept me down for so long. And so I really try to write empowering tracks that I need to hear, including one of my favorites, I'm a Faggot, I'm a Dyke. I know that sounds a little bit divisive, but we should be able to play and have fun. I can say it.
Yes, you can.
Thank you.
I did want to say one more thing. I've been talking a lot about like where I come from, who I am, but I currently serve as the programs manager at Reach LA. And Reach LA is a historic organization that has been around since 1992 that is using creative arts, social development, social enterprise, and health and wellness to really address LGBTQ plus health. I want to do something really quick. So this panel is beautiful, this panel is powerful, but one of the most marginalized groups of community members that are not present here is Black trans women, right? And so that is an issue, that's a problem. And the reason why I say that is because right now I am working alongside two fierce, powerful, and incredible Black transgender women to create a program called Prep for a Pageant. And so Prep for a Pageant is essentially advancing access to prep services for Black transgender women, as well as highlighting them in a pageant show that will be in the weekend of December 11 and December 12. So please, if you are interested in donating to Prep for a Pageant, if you're interested in learning more about Prep for a Pageant, you can contact me. And also, I just want Cheyenne and Calypso to take a stand really quick. And I want everyone in this room to clap for them, please. Clap for them. Thank you, Cheyenne Lindsay, and thank you, Calypso Jate. And that is all for me.
Okay, Marge, you want to?
Well, you just released a book, right? I think that you should tell us about your book, Lucky. Yes.
So along the lines of art, the day before yesterday, I just released my first book, and it's around art, digital art, poetry, short stories. But art for me was a place to hide. Art for me was a place that I could be loud about who I was. Art for me was a savior in so many kind of ways because my art believed me, right? And when no one else believed me, my art was the one that said, it's okay, I hear you and I'm listening, right? And so for the first time, I've published a chunk of it so far yesterday, and it's called The In-Between. You can search me, Luckie Alexander, on Amazon as of today.
If you order it right now, it'll come to your house by Saturday, I found out. So you could get on Amazon right now and have it on Saturday. Lucky promised he would sign some of them. So.
Yes, I will sign them. So first, I want to thank all of my powerful and amazing and incredible fierce friends up here. And if I could get y'all to appreciate them for me. Yes. Thank y'all for existing. I'm about to find out.
Do we have time for questions?
We have time for questions? Okay, so we do have time for questions.
I know, she's gonna give them my Mars, and I get these ones.
Okay. Oh, that's awesome.
Brilliant.
All right, so who has questions for our panelists? This young person with the pink on here.
So I'm currently in the transitioning phase of becoming like agender, like genderless completely. And I was wondering, like, how could I do that? Like, with my dad is a bit of a Republican, but he still advocates for me and stuff. I'm wondering, like, how can I come up to my dad in that sense?
Oh my gosh, so that's a great question. So, and agender specifically, I think like I used that term when I came out as well in college. And I didn't find many people who understood it. I think education is one of the most important parts, first and foremost. And I think safety too. I would definitely maybe sit down with some friends and think about a safety plan and think, first of all, do you think your dad would be the kind of person who would be safe to come out to? And if not, who can you find in your family and friends to support you? I think also providing resources and education is so helpful, and providing media as well. I can't think of anything on top of my head that features specifically an agender person, but I do think about Steven Universe that has the characters in the universe who don't necessarily have a gender, but have an appearance that appears what people would code as female or feminine. And I'm pretty sure that's explicitly stated in the media. I think having media like Steven Universe, or having narratives or stories from other people who come out as agender, one can show that it's possible to exist and thrive as a person who is agender. And two, that there are ways and access and resources and pathways to success, jobs, opportunities for agender people. I think those are the two things that my parents worried about when I came out. It's one, I would catch HIV, two, I would be unemployed, and three, I would be addicted to substances. And then when they saw that, one, I was educated, two, I was working, I was the first in my family to get an education from immigrant families. And to see that I was able to do that, I think showed them that they were able to see that other people can succeed too. And so I would say that having, if you can find on YouTube other people who have come out as agender and showing them those videos, having resources of what it means to support your agender youth and providing them to the parents might be helpful, and then also just thinking about safety again. But every situation is different, and you will know when it's your time, when you feel it's right to come out. And don't ever feel like you're on a timeline or a time crunch. Take it slow and take your time.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? We have a person.
Get the microphone to work, maybe. Hi, so in general, I am a transmasculine, non-binary individual, and I wanted to ask all of you, any of you who want to answer, how has being in the media and the face of the public affected not only your transitions, but your advocacy? We as trans people do not get the option to not pay attention to the policies that are happening, to not pay attention to our governments, to not pay attention to what our local laws are doing. So there's always advocacy around our existence. So how has being in the media affected that for you, made it harder, made more connections?
Sorry, I don't mean to take out the mic, but I think about this experience very specifically. So I was invited on BuzzFeed on 2 occasions to speak on behalf of trans, Latinx, non-binary people. And I shared my story, and I thought this is a great opportunity to be visible on YouTube, to be able to share my story, to have people know that we exist, to talk about like Latine, ella, like changing the language, changing the culture. And the first thing they told me was, don't look at the comments. Mm-hmm. Now, what do you think that is? Don't look at the comments. What do you think I found when I saw on the media, when I looked at that video, the comments? What do I see when I see on my social media, my own personal page, the comments, the messages? It's not nice. And I think about that sometimes where I think with media, so many times trans narratives are sensationalized or distorted to promote this narrative that we're evil, we're groomers, we're trying to destroy the world, we're trying to sabotage gender, we're trying to do everything possible to villainize us. In movies, especially the trans misogyny, like the reveals of like, oh my gosh, she was a man, or oh my gosh, she was a trap, or oh my god, this like it's like sensational. I think about how that informs our culture, because what we consume, what we observe, informs how our language, informs how we communicate, informs how we treat one another, informs how we love and respect one another, our neighbors, our friends, our family. What we consume informs all of that. And so when our media doesn't reflect positive images of full, expansive lives of trans people, we fall into that stereotype. And sometimes people are going to see me as a stereotype. They're going to see me what they want to see. But in truth, people are so much more fully dimensional to that. And I think with media and advocacy, when you see that narrative of a trans person being villainized, challenge that narrative. Speak out against it. Say, where's the proof? Where's the numbers? Where's statistics? Where's the research? I have proof. I have research. I have statistics. I have narratives. I have videos. I have friends. I have colleagues. I have family. This is my proof against all those narratives. Don't let that one media representation, that one example, dictate every trans person's life.
I'd love to add to that too. I think because there's such little representation of trans folks, when you are somebody that like has a social media following or is in the public eye, it feels like there's a ton of pressure for you to be the one representation of the trans community, especially when there's a deep scarcity mindset that we're not going to have multiple opportunities. Like there's not going to be more than one trans guy on a TV show, so we all have to be the one, or if you're the one that gets chosen, then everybody's going to look to you as like, okay, especially cis folks, okay, that's what a trans guy looks like. And it's so much pressure. I don't want to speak for the entire trans community, but I do want to be honest about my story. And so I think you asked, how have I been affected by being somebody in the public eye? It's that level of pressure, and that people expect that my experience has to be the experience of everybody, or my experience is the right experience, when it's just one of many. And what I really want to push for is less of that scarcity mindset, so that we can all have a seat at the table, so that we can all have 5 people on a panel to talk about. I mean, there's 5 of us here, but we're 1/10 of a million of different perspectives of trans people, and I want more narratives and more representation, so that it doesn't feel like the ones that are in media, we hold all of it, like we are the only one that's speaking. It's not fair for the trans community, and it's really, for me personally, it's exhausting and it's stressful to feel like people are looking to me as the only example.
I really, I do feel like I relate very much to what you just said, and I know we've had several conversations about that specifically. And speaking as like a feminine, trans, masculine person, I think that is there's even less representation. I didn't even know that was even a thing I could be, when I came out. And I think that there is a lot of pressure to be visible and to express my experience, because I'm like, just so you know, this is possible, in case any trans youth are out there thinking that they can't exist. Like, yeah, it is a scarcity mindset, and it needs to stop. We are not the voice of the entire trans community. I only speak from my personal experience. I can never speak for anyone else's. And stop looking to one trans person to just tell you about trans identity. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Go ahead.
I'm a teacher, so I have a really loud voice naturally, but I will use this. So I teach first grade, and I just wanted to ask if you can think back to that time. Is there anything that your first grade teacher, kindergarten teacher, specifically elementary school teacher, could have or did, I don't want to assume they didn't, say or do that would have been empowering, that would have been validating for you wherever you were at in your journey at that time?
Very short and sweet. I think infographics. I think visuals. I think posters. I think all that would be helpful. I recommend for all of my teachers and all my students, or in schools when I work with schools, I just worked with Hermosa Beach recently, and I would share like the genderbird person, the genderbird unicorn, like pronoun graphics, like media. Like when I was in high school, my high school teacher showed me Glee. Granted, at the time, like it wasn't the best representation, but like I think having those resources, those visuals, those possibility models really drives the point home for me. In first grade, I think that would have really changed my life.
Yeah, I remember really vividly one of the most traumatic experiences I had as a trans youth was switching to that new school and just trying to use the bathroom. And the duty guard came into the bathroom and called me a pervert and kicked me out of the restroom. And I really encourage folks that are working with trans youth, don't wait until you have a trans student to prep for these things, like what bathroom are they going to use? How are we going to talk about pronouns in the classroom? Do not wait to have that one instance where I'm crying, going to my principal, being called a pervert at 3rd grade. Prep in advance. Know that trans people are going to be in your classrooms. They're going to need resources, and plan accordingly. But yeah, anything with like this really sensitive stuff of bathrooms, changing rooms, how can I be safe? How can I not out myself to my class? How can I find a safe advocate? Like silly little things. I remember I would always look for the teachers in my elementary school that had I forgot what it was, but it was, Safe Cert. They would have the Safe certification. And I was like, okay, at least there's some symbol that like, if I wanted to talk to this teacher about something, they wouldn't be mean and harass me. So like small indicators and planning ahead. Trans and non-binary people are gonna be in your classroom. And like I mentioned earlier, being on top of doing that research so that we don't have to come to you and be like, this is the thing that I need. Be like, oh, I've heard that this is a resource that might be helpful for this kid before they even come to you. Because we're young, you know, we're already stressed enough trying to navigate like awkward, like so-and-so's dating so-and-so in the playground. Like, I don't want to be worrying about all these teachers not having the resources that I need or educating teachers. I feel like, especially with Gen Z, the youth are oftentimes educating me sometimes. Gen Z is often educating me. So just making sure that I'm on top of it and listening and attentive and planning ahead, I think is so important.
Now, and there's something I want to actually add to that also. As a dad, right? My youngest is 6 years old, and me being in kindergarten was a long time ago. So, one thing that I have to give props to my 6-year-old teacher is there's representations of different kinds of families, like visually in the room. And so as a trans kid, I would have loved to have seen a representation of me within that room, right? And so mad love to all the teachers that are in this room. So definitely seeing a reflection of something that looks like me or represents my family, right? And that was the first thing that my kid did, was like, Dad, guess what? They have us on the wall. I was like, oh, that's cool. So yeah, for sure, representation matters. Awesome. Any other questions? The mic is coming. Please hurt yourself.
Kind of on the opposite end of that, speaking as a parent, I have a child that identifies as non-binary, and we're heading towards, they've chosen top surgery. And so we're heading down that road, and it's coming quickly in the next few months. We don't have a date yet, but we're on the list. So you all spoke of having supportive parents. What can I do as a parent to continue to show my child that support and not say the wrong thing unintentionally? Or I tend to be a fix-it person, so that's something I'm trying to control and just be as supportive as I can.
First of all, round of applause for this.
Yes.
The fact that you're even here is incredible. And the fact that you're, engaging with your child who wants this very, very real surgery that is amazing that you're affirming your child in that way. That will change their life forever. That changed mine. Binders are really annoying. I wore one for like 6 years. It's awful. And it saved my life, But yeah, I think, accepting that you're gonna say the wrong thing. You're gonna piss them off. But being strong enough to stand as their parent and just say, you know what, I apologize, have the humility to apologize and let them have their feelings when they are hurt. I remember the hardest thing about when I came out as trans when I was 18 was my mom came to visit me at college, and I was using they, them pronouns at the time. This was in 2014. And she kept messing up, and it hurt so bad because I was in a space at that time. I was in all women's college, which was very queer and very safe to have they, them pronouns. And I was being affirmed with my pronouns everywhere I went. It was awesome. I felt like it was a great place to come out. But then she came to visit, and she kept she-herring me over and over again, and then being like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, honey. I'm sorry. And then it became about her. And now I'm having to comfort my mom while I'm experiencing all the pain of being misgendered and having to hold so much space for myself and for the person who's fumbling and really trying to apologize, instead of just being like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. And whatever you need, if you need to take some space from me, I get it. That would have been so different than what I experienced with my mom. And she just didn't know, and I didn't know how to tell her because it was a different time, It was a different time. But I think, the humility to just be like, you know what, sorry, I'm so sorry, and move on, I think that's the best thing.
I also, my mom has been on this gender journey with me, and I release clothing that has pronouns on it. And so as a parent, I would encourage you to use this as an opportunity to explore your own gender. My mom, through releasing my she, they pronoun mask, found out, oh, I didn't know that I could use both she and they pronouns. Wait, I've been gender expansive my whole life. And because of you and because of your experience, I've been able to see that myself. So yes, be there for your child, but also use this as an opportunity. I think being around and loving a trans person is a blessing that you get the opportunity to have. And now because of that, you can explore and understand your gender in a way that most cis women probably won't ever get the opportunity to. And that is a blessing for you as the parent of this trans youth.
Eden?
And I'm sure you know, but for anyone who doesn't know about surgery recovery, like having a parent, having a lover, having someone at home, like there to take care of you in recovery is such a blessing. I went through facial feminization about a year and a half ago, and I was so lucky to have my mom and my then partner at the time just providing food, providing anything I needed. If I needed to walk to the bathroom, they provided a hand. If they needed someone to I needed someone to bring me food, they were there and attentive. And with anyone going to a surgery, it can be really challenging and painful and isolating, and depression could kick in. I was depressed a day or two, and I was like, what the hell did I do with myself? And it wasn't a moment of regret. It was just the shock, the morphine, the all of that settles in. After you get off the table, you're okay, you're fine. But the moment all that settles in your body, depression is normal. And I wish someone was there to be able to help me and say that's normal what you're feeling. It's gonna get better. Every day you recover, the healing process will get better. But I think having someone there at home to make life easier is so important, so helpful. So I think having a care plan is helpful. And if you can't be in that place, maybe you have work, maybe you have other obligations, having someone, a friend, someone you trust that can help step in is so helpful. It takes a community, it takes a village to make community care happen.
No more questions? All right, so if we could thank our panelists one more time.